That was our pave week, so they just moved on to other projects, and now we're picking up at the end. They will start Monday. That's confirmed from the State Department of Transportation as of, I think, yesterday, that they will start Monday on this project. These are contractors. It's not DOT workers. It's not truly DOT. They don't typically have control of the situation either, but it's a mess. It's a mess, and it's very unfortunate, and people are, hitting curbs and raised things and side streets and driveways, and we're asking people to drive with caution. Best we can do on that. Our project, the Saunders Point project, is going, and it's a much more detailed project because we took all the pavement off the road. We went down to a sandy base and then had to reshape the roads for drainage purposes because those are tiny little beach roads, and that's on target. And I think they were supposed to start paving. Today's Wednesday. I didn't go down there, but they were supposed to start paving today. So that involved drainage work underneath the roads and repiping some areas, and drainage, how it spills off the roads into lawns and not down driveways and into basements. So they reshaped that entire road. That projects and the projects that the town controls are on schedule and are being performed. Costco project continues to gain momentum. They came in with their, and you'll hear about this later, they came in with their building permit fee check of $200 and something thousand. We're $213,000. We're expecting another, $10,000 on a water permit or sewer permit or something else. We're expecting money. So they came in, the check cleared. I checked. Not that I wouldn't expect them to give us a hot check, but they're all in. They also backed a truck up and brought in their blueprints and their plans for this and fill up about a half a room in our basement here that our planner and our zoning people and all have to go through. But they're all in. So that project will continue to move forward. I have a meeting next week coordinating the Costco project with the DOT project and how that's going to dovetail. We reached we still have some union contracts out there, and we've reached a tentative agreement, still waiting for votes to happen on the town side, and we're very close on the police side. We're just waiting for a few minor details to be cleaned up. So we're very happy about that. And we're doing a whole lot of work with the health insurance and looking into the state plan for next year. I'm hopeful that that's something that we can move toward. It's something that we won't have to worry about is what our self-insurance number is today and where we are this month in our budget. And that's been a bit of, caused a lot of anxiety and stress and concern, obviously, with budgets. And it's the number one driving force in our budget in the last couple of years, especially this past year, 28% increase in self-insurance. So we're hopeful that the state plan stays solid and that we have agreements with most of the unions, and others will realize the good value of going to that plan, which will be cheaper and better coverage. So that's my report for tonight.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Questions?
Yes. So I feel like I should know this, but that's all right. Do we all agree that we're hiring a new policeman? Because I saw the ad in the paper. I guess I don't remember.
The ad in the police, that's a replacement of someone who's left the Corps.
Okay, so it's a neutral.
Yeah. It's replacing a position. We're not adding positions. That would be in next year's budget.
Okay. Do you have a high-level schedule for the public for some of the projects you were just talking about, Costco, and what else were you just talking about? Something going on.
Costco.
Paving is on this way.
Well, I mean, I just think it would be a kind of a good communication tool if you have, I don't know if it'd be on a board or what, but just a thought. Because people ask those questions and then we forget. You know what I mean? Might be kind of a nice.
I don't know. Everywhere I go, I talk about it. And it's been it's been in the newspaper. And I think actually, I was interviewed by. We have a new day reporter in town, Mary, and you'll get to know her. She might come to a meeting or two. And she's going to be doing a story on Costco, I think, for the weekend's edition. So that might come out as well. The schedule is November 2019. They plan on opening. They have a date on the calendar circled on when their grand opening is. They're very, very organized, and they know exactly how long it takes to build these buildings, and they're very confident with their opening day. The meeting next week will kind of outlay, the construction of the off-ramps and the temporary roads and all that, and I'll have a better understanding of how that's all going to work, and road closures and such, and we'll be communicating that when we get closer to those moments, and when we know better. The state project is still years away, so redoing the bridge, the on and off ramps, the widening and reorganization of Flanders Road to the top degree in which the state is planning on, is being surveyed and being engineered currently, and will be a project that will be in, probably 3 years out, and probably take 2 years to build. Only then can the Costco project expand to its full potential, which is the outdoor living town center, living/town center, with the other retail that is allowed by zoning and is part of the master development. But that can't be built until the permanent road fixtures are in place. And that's 3 to 5 years out. Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anything else I'm missing on that? I'm not sure if your question
you have to
wanted
realize
more.
that's an occupational hazard for me. Our
Yeah, I understand.
high-level
I
schedules,
know
I
you-
think they're great communication tools. And everything that you just said is exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But it's not on paper for the public to
Have
see.
they given presentations that describe all those steps?
Because, see, people won't remember that. I can just tell you they're not going to until they see
Is
it.
there something that you can stick on a PDF or a PowerPoint or
It's
something
been,
that you can?
we've had it, and I can locate them. There's probably, I don't know if it's on the town website still. I mean, we've been talking about Costco for years, right? So the newspaper's done several articles about it and all that, and of course we have the drawings out in the conference room, and it's social media has taken a hold of it as well. But I can timeline it, I guess.
There you go.
But there's not much to timeline. November 19th. In November 2019 will be the opening, and it'll be a mess before then, and then the bridge project. This bridge project is going to be coming up sooner,
Right.
and that's that's a total bridge. I think that was part of my report last month, but that's going to be a major. It's going to be like 156 all over again, but it's going to last 18 months of reconditioning that bridge and rebuilding it. Not the steel part, but the connection part and the mechanism that drives up the actual deck, the computers involved in that, and then the painting of under the bridge, scraping, sandblasting, and painting under the bridge. Significant, and will be an inconvenience.
How old is that bridge?
25 years old.
Doesn't feel that.
Can you imagine?
No, it
It
doesn't.
seems like it's
No.
10,
Yeah.
right?
Remember
Yeah.
when I used to take the swing?
It's
bridge?
25. Any
Every day.
movable, you learn these things in these meetings. Any movable bridge, it's every 25 years. And any stable bridge, it's 50 years. That they have to go in and really gut it and
Yeah.
do all the joints all over again. But any movable bridge that's connecting pieces together and all that, and lifting up and computer, the parts in the computer they don't even make anymore. So sometimes that bridge gets stuck, and that's why they have trouble fixing this bridge now. So that will be coming. I think it starts in the spring. Soon enough.
Any other questions for our first selectman? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Director of Finance, you're up.
Your reports were included in your packages, and then this evening I put the high-level monthly budget summary in your green folders. Really, at this point, no surprises, and everything's, moving along okay, with our operating budget. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah. So, I'm looking at overtime on the detailed expenditure analysis.
What
Page
department?
19. I don't know. What's that, Department 215, Public Safety, right? So it's kind of a general term, a general question. And then there's police overtime. So we're over budget. We should be 25% roughly into the year. I recognize not every line item is a linear expenditure. but we're 50% into that budget. And then if you look at overtime for the highway, which is on page 25, we're 56% into that budget, which makes me just ask the general question about overtime budgets. Is there a way we could have a prepared sheet to, the end in mind for me is to understand how we can better control our overtime budgets. I mean, everyone's trying to do the right thing, so let me just say that. But that is a big cost to the town. And I feel like we just sort of, we put it in the budget, and then every year we use more than we say we're gonna. And I just don't feel like we have a good handle on it. I mean, it's only 25%, it's only whatever it is, October 4th, as these budgets are, and one of them's already half used for Public Works, and we're not even into winter yet. It's a big
Well,
chunk of the budget.
That's the regular overtime. We have a special overtime account for storms.
Okay, we're still 56% into the budget.
In the regular one.
No, you
that's
said this is the regular one.
Yeah, it's a regular.
It's not even storm overtime, I won't argue with, it's at 0.
Yeah.
It's 78 degrees out, no pushback from me. However, I'd like to just sort of look at overtime budgets and see, like last year, have some kind of trend analysis. Do we get this deep into these budgets year after year and we just don't see it because we're going like this? Or I just feel like it has us and we don't have it, if you know what I mean.
Well, so like, for example, police overtime, like right now, it's trending, rather good budget-wise. However, we just had an officer that left. So now, there'll be a period of time, once that officer leaves, before we get a new officer on board, and depending on what level officer we hire, that officer may have to go through training at the academy. So it could be several months before that officer gets out on the road. So what's gonna happen is, to fill shifts, it might, spike up the overtime.
Yeah.
So there's, when things like that happen, especially when you're dealing with public safety,
Right.
it creates,
But see, I don't have a good handle on whether or not that situation is an anomaly or there's a trend with that, and I kind of want Mike to help us out with that, right? He's the chief of police, and I'd like him to take a look at that and say, here's where we can do better. I've looked at all these over the past 8 years and looked at the data. I see what you're saying. Maybe if we did X, because it's a big chunk of our budget, and I feel like when these budgets are overexpended, we just go, we want to give them what they need. There's not a person sitting here that doesn't want to support the firemen or the police or Public Works for that matter. But they just come up, and I feel like we're not well planned for them, where our budgets are often overextended, and I don't know is there something, maybe there's something we can't do anything about it, but we should look into it first, right? Because they're a big part of the budget.
If I could, I'm not sure they're overextended often. I mean, we've come to
But I
need
don't-
money here and there, and it's been directly because of an illness, somebody being out.
But
We had
see,
an officer out.
I don't know that. I don't have any trend data on it. All I know is
Well-
right now I got an answer for this month.
Anytime we run out of overtime money or any budget item, we have to come back to the Board of Finance through appropriations and move money around. Okay, so we can have Mike come to the meeting and explain that to you, and why he's 56 at this stage of the year. It's probably because summer months he uses more overtime,
Okay, maybe. But
And
then
I don't
there's
wanna answer
Public
for him.
Works. There's Public Works, right?
right?
And so.
And they do all their work in this.
Right, but I'm just looking for, right.
Is
But
Joe here?
we're all trying to advocate for the taxpayer, right?
Yeah.
All of us are. I know we all are. But we don't have any trend data over the last, say, 5 years in just the overtime budgets to just say, is there something we can do better? And if there isn't, then we feel good. We've looked at it, we've done our due diligence as custodians of the taxpayers, of the taxes or whatever I'm trying to say. But I got no tools for that. I just look at this, I say I'm overextended. I mean, should I be going back through every one of these for the last 12 months and looking? I'm thinking that we have better tools in our finance department to do that. So I'm asking if we can take a look at overtime budgets. You understand what the end in mind is on my part, is to try to look at it and see if we can save some money. I'm asking if you can provide some tools to do that.
So what kind of a report are you looking for on overtime?
Well, are we how much overextended have we been? What was our budget in the past? I mean, it's typical
We gotta go back
sort
to
of
the budget
questions.
books. We gotta go back to the big books
So-
we give you every March.
How many times have we overextended our overtime,
Right.
right?
That's what we gotta look at.
Yeah, and I mean, we're just trying to see if we can improve this, that's all. And I know we're all rowing together on this, really. This is just something I want to zoom in on and see if we can take a look at it and just understand some of these problems, or maybe we're not budgeting enough. Because,
Is it overtime a bad word?
but we eat through our budget. We don't have sufficient money budgeted for
And if
these.
he doesn't come back to us for any more money by June 30th, then he budgeted properly, right? Regardless of the pace in which he
Yeah, I
uses
know,
overtime.
the pace, I understand
It's
it's not linear.
planned overtime.
I understand that, but
Um,
again,
we-
how often do we exceed our budget, our overtime
And
budgets?
that's the
Is
key,
something
and I
I'd
guess
like to
that's maybe the
understand.
question that's gonna come up, or that maybe that's when we dig deep,
Yeah.
is when they come to us in January and say, I need more money.
Yeah.
Which never happens to Public Works. They never come
Okay.
to you and ask for money. Mike has.
Okay.
And the fire, no, I just wanna, so Joe will figure it out, and Joe will find it, and he won't extend overtime past the last dollar in his budget. And right now, with a late spring, he got out there and he did a lot of work and he's shorthanded, by the way. So his payroll line might actually be a little fatter than it normally should be, and his overtime might be a little more extended, but because he doesn't have the right number, he doesn't have a full staff, full crew. But now, we've seen the fire come up and said, we missed it a little bit. We had a fire guy out, I need to put extra shifts on. We've seen police do that, but Public Works will never do that to you.
Here's the bottom line though, Mark, right? These budgets, these three, police, fire, and
Mm-hmm.
public works, are the lion's share of the municipal budget, right? We really should just be looking at them more with a microscope and saying, is there some way, possibly, that we can manage those budget items better? And if there isn't, there isn't, but we don't look at that separately.
I just fail to understand what your question is, I guess.
Do we meet our budget or do we not?
ad nauseum in March and April, don't we? Go through each budget line and say, how are you spending it, and can we do it better? Like, I'm not sure what, and I don't mean to be adversarial now. I don't know how much more detail needs to be given, because we do that so much during the budget season. And look at, do we need this overtime or not? We do it every line in the budget.
I guess if somebody were to ask me, how often do we hit our overtime budgets, I guess, because they're so big, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
So what's your
I
question?
think I understand what you're asking for, and if I could just interject and maybe come at this from a different angle.
Okay.
I'll give a specific example of what I think Lisa may be looking for that you're already doing, Anna, and that is on the health insurance monthly tracking. You have a number of figures here that tells us where we were at this point in last year's fiscal budget. So right now, when I look at those numbers, at the bottom of the health insurance monthly tracking, I'm able to discern from the numbers that you provide to us that already in the first quarter of this year, we are $453,000 over where we were this time last year in claims. And so I think that's important information for us to have so that we can, I don't want to say plan for an unexpected event, but at least we're aware of it. And if we think that it's a worsening condition, maybe there's actions we can take to remedy that before it becomes a real problem, one that we might not be able to dig ourselves out of. Is that explaining it,
Yeah, that
Lisa?
tool is actually an excellent tool for the health insurance. That would probably do it. Because it does give you a barometer of where we were last year, whether we're over or not.
I think what you're looking for is a spend curve to say, okay, seasonally, early in the year, we spend a lot of overtime, but then it flattens out mid-year, and then it peaks again later. So, yeah, 56%, but we do most of the spending early in the year, and just trying to get a smell for whether or not that's normal or not. And that's basically what you're looking for.
Well, that's part of it. I just want to be able to plan ahead if we're going to overextend those budgets. And did we hit the mark? And Because they're just a big chunk, and I just don't feel like I have a handle on it. I look at a year, and it's 50% over, and I say to myself, is that good, bad? Is it normal? Am I gonna make it to the end of the year? I don't know.
Does your software that you use to print these reports have any kind of analysis tools in it? It's just flat numbers,
Funny, Bill.
figure it out. Welcome to 1960. Remind me next time that I say you don't need
I'm
software.
not worried about Joe, so he'll never come to you for help.
No, I think the picture is
So
larger.
it's Mike in the fire only, that this could ever occur, and would you like me just to report back to you on whether they think they're gonna meet their budget number at the end of the year? And if they think they're on pace?
Well, that would certainly help. I'm just saying, there are 3 budgets that are large, and we should be doing whatever we can to look at them as tightly as possible and see where we can, and I know we do it for budget season, I'm not implying we don't, all right?
Yeah.
But we're up here with different hats, and they're just a big chunk of the budget, and I see, you know, like I said, overtime for highway, 56%, so I don't know what's up with that. I'm looking at
I'll
all
tell you,
the,
they
in
don't do
the,
projects in the winter. So they don't do projects in the winter. We do storm budget.
maybe it's
but-
not a problem, but
Yeah.
okay,
It's
I
not
look
a
at,
problem.
I look at, did you say it's not at all?
It shouldn't be a problem. We do all our summer projects in the summer.
I look at
Just like
supplies
all
and
the-
miscellaneous and public works, we're 89% into that budget. That's on page 26. That whole control section is way over where it should be, and maybe it is because we do roads and stuff in the summer, but I don't know, just worried we're not gonna make the budget there. It's a big chunk of money. If I didn't ask about it, I'd be remiss.
Can I just,
Of course.
so with regards to the miscellaneous expenditures, the total that's showing expended also reflects encumbrances.
Right.
So if you'll notice,
I
there's
did.
encumbrances as well.
Encumbrance means we're gonna have to pay it out. We've incurred a bill, we haven't paid it out yet, but we've.
Or like, I mean, for some of the miscellaneous supplies, the departments open blanket purchase orders because they're constantly purchasing, you know, supplies through the year. So that's a part of it.
Okay.
So
But
it's not
you
like,
don't encumber overtime.
no, but
So-
she was just, you know, Lisa had just brought up the miscellaneous expenses, so that's why I'm, you know, making that comment here.
Okay, well, I'm just, the reason we get these reports, I assume, is to see if we're gonna make our budget, or to see if there's problem areas, if we're spending higher than we think we should. So, what's Department 421?
Parks and Recreation.
Parks and Rec, okay, well, that's summer, 81% into their budget. Field maintenance, 111% of their budget. I don't know what we're gonna do with that, but I know it's a summer item.
Okay, let me just make a comment. Instead of belaboring this point, and I agree with what she's saying, why don't we have Mike come and explain the situations where overtime happens, like from last year and this year? I mean, certain things happen that you can't predict, correct? So if he could come just explain the situations that can happen and why he has to go into overtime. Now, maybe the overtime of 50% now, the other 50% he may not use till the end of the year. But if he could explain why these situations come up, why he uses extra overtime, maybe that would clarify, you know, what Lisa's trying to get at.
I can bring every department head in here and they can.
Well, you don't have-
No, the ones that, not every, but the 3 or 4 that you highlighted. And they can say yes or no, they plan on meeting their budget. And if whatever bell curve they're on now, because they spend more in this department or this line during certain seasons, they can explain that to you, or just say, look you in the eye and say, I'm not giving you any more money, I budgeted correctly.
And then what would be great is if we looked at last year's and said, did we meet our overtime budget on all these departments? Or did we exceed it, or where are we? Because I don't remember that. I'd be bringing a wheelbarrow in here of budget books if I were gonna do that. I don't have a tool for that. It'd be great to know if these 3 departments in other towns have the same problem. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. I got no context. Just think we ought to be looking at it, given how much of the budget it is. That's all I got.
I just have a question for clarification, though. The overtime budget that is presented to the board is based on union contractual agreements, right? Isn't that how
No.
It's not always calculated that way?
Fire has a contractual, they actually have overtime built into their salary, you know, police, it's indicative of, of filling shifts mostly. You know, we have 23 officers, Waterford has 40. They have a lower overtime budget than we do. So we can go out and hire, and we don't want to hire $100,000 officers so that we don't have to pay overtime. You know, putting 6 more guys on the force might eliminate our overtime.
Yeah, but it's gonna
Because we'd have a
cost more.
plethora of men and women to fill in those slots. But that's not good management, right? So we do have a higher overtime budget to cover those. And yes, so therefore there's a union component that says, well, if you lose somebody on a shift, you need to fill that shift. You can't just send one officer out on a given shift. We have a minimum of 3, and sometimes in the summer you need 4 or 5 on a particular shift. In the way that I think they have a 4-2 schedule or 5-3 schedule. However, their scheduling works. Sometimes you run into those scheduling problems. But that's a good, honest opinion. As far as overtime goes, as Public Works, again, you'll.
Joe's head pops up.
Mr. Brigard, you should
Hi,
go
Joe.
home and come back in 10 minutes. Joe Brigard has never come to my board or your board looking for money, ever. He budgets for his overtime and his personnel and all his expenses, and even those stormy winters when we're using twice as much rock salt, he finds a way to get it done. And he does it through that town aid road. Remember, the state gives us money that we can apply. And he does it in a number of different ways. And he might not do a sidewalk project that he was planning on doing. He might have to not do a particular project or cut back here and there. But he has never, it's his history and he's proud of it, never come to you needing money. And the discussion started with your overtime, Joe, is not 25% expended. It's far, 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 far above that.
Can I answer that?
You probably should in the microphone, and we're actually in the first selectman's report, so we're, I'll just
No, we're in the
Mr. Chair.
finance director's.
Oh, finance director's report, so I'll remind you of that.
I'm down 3 people right now, and 2 of the people retired, and I haven't filled those positions yet, so our regular salaries is gonna be way under, so I keep track of that all the time, and I'm balancing it. And then we supply Celebrate East Lyme. We're sending people to touch a truck. We're doing all these things, community things, to try to support. We're at Saunders Point working Saturdays on one occasion because we're trying. Every other day it's raining, and I don't want to leave all those people open like the construction project down there. So everything has a reason, but this is our busy season.
Thanks.
So you might transfer money from your regular payroll line to the overtime line.
But I can't do that until January.
Until later in the year when you're allowed to do that. But again, at the bottom line, money will be not coming from you, no extra.
If I could.
You can.
Yeah, thanks. I feel as though, I mean, I understand Lisa's point and what she's basically looking for. I'm not sure that I'm comfortable asking Anna to produce another document, as you seem to be producing many documents for us. And maybe one way around this to kind of shrink the load is we do have an item which is the other town wages and benefits. Of course, it focuses on East Lyme plus the other towns. But this is kind of in that realm of the woods, we'll say, the issue of overtime. So maybe as part of our little study with that, we could add an occasional memo from some department head that it may explain their years, how they came to their budget concerning overtime, what problems they may encounter, any information that can be gleaned, and just have it come directly from the department heads and not worry about a presentation here. You know, I think rather than producing yet another document, or having, burdening our staff anymore to discuss, because I'm not sure what the end point will finally be once we learn all of it, because of, what's within our control and not. So I see it as a good, information tool at this point, but I'm not sure about the end point. So maybe we just, ask the department heads if they have information when they have presented, when they pull their budgets together during budget season, what guidelines they have, what they expect. And if they even know the last 3 years of overtime budgets, stick it in the, half-page memo or something like that. But that might be helpful, instead of a whole opening up the universe of documentation. Any thought on that?
In my humble opinion, this starting my 4th year on this board, every time you give your report in the past, until these last couple of months, the question was, is there anything in this budget that you're concerned about? And it seemed like every time that you were asked that question, you identified something that you were watching, and the next month or two, it turned out to be right. And the things that you were concerned about, because you live inside this budget constantly, you were familiar with. And at the end of the year, you're pretty on top of everything, and there's not any surprises. So although I can't always look at all these budgets and understand which budgets spend what percent what month, I think you can. And I think that typically, in the last 4 years that I've been here, you've done a good job of telling us what we should have to watch out for. So I agree that, to me, creating more reports, I think using your knowledge is sufficient.
If that's the case, then don't bother giving the reports to us, right?
No, I'm saying that we can look at it, we can look at the things we're concerned about, we can ask about the things we're concerned about, but we're getting to the point that we're asking Anna to do a lot of things that consume her time.
Okay.
So that's my opinion. I'm guessing of the 6 board members, or at least the 5 here, 5 people have 5 different opinions, but my opinion is I trust the staff to do their job. And I think they're doing a good job at it. That's my opinion. Anybody else want to share their opinion?
Agreed.
I don't think it's an issue of doing her job. Of course, she's doing her job. When our job is to look at and be fiscally prudent and advocate for taxpayers. So this has nothing to do with doubting what Anna's doing.
Okay.
But, the way I look at it, 'cause I have been here before, you look at these percentages month to month, and some are higher, some are lower. And a lot of them wash out by the end of the year when you get to June. So I don't get overly excited when I see 50% in overtime. If it was a concern, I'm sure Anna would tell us, the first selectman would tell us, or if Mike is here, he'd tell us. And he'd tell us the situation, why it's over, we're using up 50%. But normally we follow that, we track it all through the year, and then when it comes to the spring, that's when we go through this and scrutinize it and see why we're over budget if we are in certain departments. But, Anna usually brings it up to the surface when there's a problem, correct?
Now, my first year on this board, I asked for a percent complete, and every month can we find out what percent complete we are for every budget, and we get curves and plots and everything, because that's what I do at work all day long, is I got plots and curves, and they just make your eyes spin, because that's what we do. But we got big computers, and we got big staff, and we spend billions of dollars tracking dollars. But for us, spending billions of dollars is what we have to do. For the town, I think we can look at this data and have our staff tell us areas of concern. And if we have new areas of concern, we can question and interrogate.
Okay, so
I wouldn't propose bringing staff in to do reports on how they're gonna curb their overtime, but if you wanna interview them and have them explain to you how they see spend per month, they're heavy in the front end of the month or year, and they're middle and everything else. If we wanna have some kind of educational thing like that, but I understand bringing people in here for an hour or two is an hour or two that they're not doing what they're doing, and that's time that we have to spend or compensate for comp time and things like that.
Right.
And I'm sensitive to people that are very busy doing overtime.
great. So what we should do is reflect in the minutes, Lisa raised the concern about managing the overtime budgets for 3 of the largest departments in the municipal budget. It was agreed upon by the board that this was not a significant enough of a concern to invest any resources in.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that, Lisa. It is a significant issue, and I think that we're well within our right to ask for an explanation if there's something that you see that you don't like. I do agree that it is not a good idea to bring a department head in here to address that question because of those reasons that I think Bill just stated. And I also don't know if I want another piece of paper to track this type of information. But I definitely would like the record to reflect that Lisa did have this concern. She's bringing it to our attention in the first quarter, and I think it's a valid concern. 50 or 60% usage based on a 25% calendar year, is alarming, especially when you talk about how large these budgets are. And so I think that this is something that we will remember if we see next month that trend is continuing and still alarming. And it is something that we'll have to either ask you to come and address before you come and ask for more money for that line item, or when you do, if you let it go and then say on May 30th, you say we need an appropriation for $100,000 in overtime because we're short, I think that you can probably expect a little pushback on that, because we brought this up in October. And we don't want to wait until May when it becomes a serious problem. So I think that's fair.
Sure, that's fair.
And then we're gonna wanna see the curves. Then we're gonna wanna see the curves. Then we're gonna wanna see the history. Any other questions for our Director of Finance? I'm sorry, is there anything else we wanted to address for this? Mr. Mumbles needs a little help.
I do have some additional questions for Anna if we're still on the Board of Finance.
Please do.
Okay. So I heard you say this evening that we received $213,000 in building permit fees in the month of October, which of course we're only looking at end of September reports. Was any part of that $213 fee that we received from the developers included in the $300,000 budget that we approved for this fiscal year?
The 300,000 is more just like a regular year. There was no real,
Allowance.
allowance for a large piece of Costco. Because we were going through the budget, Costco wasn't coming anymore.
That's exactly what I remember. So if I can extrapolate, is that the right term?
Interpret.
That number of $300,000, we can expect by the end of this fiscal year that we are going to be over budget, which is a good thing on a revenue item, by at least $213,000, because we didn't account for that.
Could be, but with the projections in the building permits, we did decrease our projection for this fiscal year. It have been really tricky to meet at year end. This has been one of the accounts that we've had shortfalls in.
Right.
So, I mean, it would be nice if it was in excess, by the 200,000, but it's difficult to project at this time.
But we've already reduced that significantly from prior years. That $300,000 is significantly lower than what was budgeted in prior years. So that's a pretty, given, all the other building activity that goes on, is a pretty good estimate, I would say. Wouldn't you say? 300,000?
It can be, and actually, after this month, I start looking at what we've received to date and what I'm going to project out for the rest of the year. So,
Okay.
as time goes on, we'll have a better idea of what that'll be.
So did anybody do an analysis of what the effect of the Costco build-out is going to have on building permits? You say we received $213,000 in October, but isn't that a process where permitting fees are collected over a period of time and at each inspection point? So my question is, it's paid all up 100, so that's it. So
That's all
we're
we're
not
gonna
going
get,
to
plus that extra 10,000 for the water and sewer department, yes.
Okay, so that's it for Costco from now until next November 2019,
This is it.
213,
Right.
which is great. I just want to know
Agreed.
what we can, if there's anything else we can count on coming down the pipe.
Good question.
Okay, so I'm good on building permit fee revenues. Education cost sharing, I see that we have not received anything as of the end of September. Did we receive a check in October?
We haven't received anything on ECS yet.
Isn't October usually the month where we receive those revenues? Is there a feeling that the state is behind, delinquent,
No, not at this.
going to renege on that in any way?
We haven't heard anything.
Okay. So you anticipate that those revenues are coming in October? At least, what is it, 50% comes in October and 50% next
We
year?
get it comes
Three?
3 times during the year.
Okay, all right. But it is October 9th and we haven't received any revenues yet. Okay,
I haven't received that.
that's all the questions I have for finance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Director of Finance? Thank you.
Thanks.
All righty then. New business. So, I heard earlier that we might want to close the meeting and open an executive session for a temporary stay. Do I have a motion to do that? Do I have a motion to open an executive session? To close, temporary close the regular meeting?
May I first ask if we have the resources present to answer questions related to the lawsuit this
I
evening?
think it would be worthwhile to go and have the conversation that we want to have, even if it's just a short little 10 minutes. This is what we want to hear kind of conversation.
Okay, then I make the motion to enter into executive session to discuss the special education lawsuit that is pending.
Agenda item 6A, yes?
That motion should include maybe both of you?
Yes.
I'm sorry, say it louder.
Yes.
That's what
we
we're
need
doing
to
now.
add it.
We had a vote to add it to the agenda. I'm sorry, yes, you're,
Special meeting, you'll want to invite the Board of Ed, 2 members. Mr. Baumann shouldn't be there. I should not be there. And obviously, so it really should just be those 2. I don't know if Anna should be there. Legally, you can only have people there who have a
have an
direct
interest.
reason to be there.
But
And
Anna
we'll give you
has-
information.
That's why I opened up
I
the
know.
question with, do we have the people present that would be able to,
Yes.
okay. So
Mr.
we don't
New-
know if Mr. Baumann was part of this committee that is handling this lawsuit, do we?
He's not a lawyer, and he's not Board of Ed, and he's not your finance director of the Board of Ed. As it pertains to this item on your
Mr.
agenda
Baumann,
this
would you
evening.
be able to answer for me if you would bring any value to an executive session when we discuss the special ed lawsuit?
I'd like to think I bring value to a lot of discussions. This is probably one I bring less value to.
Okay,
than
thank
others.
you. Okay, so
the
then,
the only appropriate people would be the 2.
Would
Board
you
of
think
Ed.
you need to
I
be there?
think-
I don't think so either.
Anna doesn't
So
have anything
really,
to
just
add?
those 2.
Okay.
They should be on your
well, so,
list.
so my
Okay.
first motion then is to amend the agenda, include entering into executive session. To add, what did I say?
To add, going into executive session on the agenda
Okay.
for this action item. Right.
Okay.
And I would second that motion.
I have a
to add.
motion and a second to add the agenda item to go into executive session to be briefed on the action item 6A sped lawsuit. Any further discussion?
Just one question. Do we need an attorney, the town attorney at this?
We're not making any
This
decisions.
is just an educational kind of,
Information.
Okay.
it's informational, educational
Can't make any
thing.
motions.
Nope.
You just I can ask questions.
All right,
Right.
Don't make notes.
it's
Should we
qualified.
leave, or are they all leaving?
They're all leaving, we're staying here.
You need to turn the microphones off.
Right,
and
right,
the
right.
cameras.